I'm excited today, Angie. Let's go live. I'm going to talk to the audience for just a second. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about strokes because they are often a sudden and often devastating event that can profoundly impact the physical and emotional fabric of our individual lives. Today, we're joined by Angie Read, a tenacious and devoted mother of three who, at the pinnacle of her professional life, experienced a massive stroke. Angie's journey, however, isn't just about the physical aftermath of a stroke. It's about resilience and confronting the unspoken mental health challenges that can arise in its wake. With over 25 successful years in public relations and author of Invisible Scars, Stroke Survival, Recovery, and the Unexpected Mental Health Fallout, Angie's life took an unexpected detour that reshaped her perspective and mission. So now she channels her experience into advocacy, aiming to ensure that no one navigating the tumultuous waters of post stroke recovery feels alone. Through her books and talks, Angie is illuminating a path of healing, understanding, and renewed purpose. Today, we'll delve into her story, unearthing lessons that resonate far beyond the world of stroke survivors, touching the hearts of universal human experience and challenges and jobs and life in general. Get ready for an exciting adventure. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Funny Way of Looking, where diverse voices meet open minds. We're on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and also on your favorite podcast. You can find us over on afunnywayoflooking.com. And today, Angie Reed is with us. Angie, how are you
Hi,
doing?
I'm great. How are you today?
I am fabulous. We've got everything going, and I am excited to
Awesome.
talk to you. Hardest question of the day. Who do you want to do a shout out to?
I want to shout out to my husband, Steve, who's back in Kansas City. I'm in Phoenix for a little trip right now. And I am sitting here and talking and walking and alive today because my husband's quick thinking the morning I had my stroke. I wouldn't be here without him. And I'm so glad he knew the signs of a
There we
stroke and
go.
could recognize it immediately and call 911. So shout out to my husband. I love you.
All right. Steve, thank you, because otherwise we'd have to have someone else on today. And I'm liking Angie right now. So this is awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Let's jump into this. So life definitely throws us curveballs, every once in a while. In your case, it was an unexpected stroke. So can you just share a little bit about what led up to that moment? Because it's not like, oh, today I think I'm gonna have a stroke. I want to know what was it that, happened. I guess in hindsight, some things that might have happened. And
Yeah.
how's that comparable to maybe the challenges that many of us face in our lives?
Yeah, what was leading up to the stroke? I didn't know it. I was unaware because I was otherwise a very healthy woman. I was 46 and active and healthy and didn't have any risk factors. I've never smoked. I didn't have high blood pressure or high cholesterol or any of the major risk factors. I had never had a doctor say, hey, you need to cut back on something to eliminate or to decrease your risk of stroke. So it really was a huge surprise. A few days prior to my stroke, I had a massive migraine, and I've suffered from migraines since I was
Mhm.
16. This particular migraine lasted over the course of 2 days and landed me in the ER. I had to go in for an IV cocktail just to knock the migraine down. And I'd never had to do that before in my life, even though I've always suffered from migraines. Um, so I was in the ER 2 days before my stroke. They had done a CAT scan on me or a CT scan, and there was nothing showing any abnormalities. The reason they did that CT scan in the ER was that my migraine was a little bit different than it had been in the past. I usually get migraines with auras, which means I see a blind spot that's like the shape of a C in my right eye. I can't
Mhm.
remember. It's either my right or my left eye, but it's always been the same, and it always makes it look like I looked at a light too long, and then you have that little blind spot. But then my blind spot lasts. Well, in this particular weekend, it lasted 2 days, and the second day of the migraine, my blind spot was like 3 times bigger than it had ever been. Um, But in the ER, they didn't see anything unusual. They just gave me an IV cocktail of fluids, and I'm not sure what else was in that, but it helped knock it down. And the next day I just had kind of a low grade headache. That was a Monday, um, and then my stroke was on a Tuesday morning. Another reason, well, I'll get into this later, but one of the probably the causes of my stroke was being in my 40s and being on birth control pills. And so I always do a major, caution to women in their 40s. If you're still on birth control for any reason, try to talk to your doctor about getting off of any kind of
Mhm.
those hormones because they can increase your chances of a stroke.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So you had your stroke. Um, we just talked about your husband finding you and knowing what the signs were. What was the immediate thing that happened to you, and what were the steps that were taken immediately?
Yeah. So it was 6:30 in the morning. I was, my alarm went off so I could get up and take a shower and go to work. And I couldn't get out of bed. It was just the weirdest thing because I couldn't put the pieces together in my mind. I just knew that some reason I couldn't get out of bed. And I was kind of shaking or moving awkwardly to try to get myself out of bed. When one whole side of your body doesn't work, it wasn't painful or anything. It just wouldn't respond to the signals my brain was sending it. And I guess I was shaking the bed a little bit. And my husband woke up and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Trying to get up and take a shower." And he said, "Are you drunk?" Because my speech was all garbled. And
Uh-huh.
I was like, "It's 6:30 in the morning. No, I'm not drunk." And but still he wasn't understanding me. So he got up out of the bed, went over to the light, turned on the light, and said, your face looks like it's sliding off on the left. You're having a stroke. I'm calling 911." And of course I was like, "No, don't call 911. I'm sure I'm just still half asleep." I mean,
Mm.
6-year-old healthy woman wakes up having a stroke. It didn't make any sense. But luckily he didn't listen to me. He called 911 immediately. The EMTs were probably there within 2 minutes. We lived really close to
Mhm.
a station, and they got there and took me to a hospital. They did a CT scan, saw two clots, and then they rushed me down to St. Luke's on the Plaza, which is in Kansas City. And St. Luke's is a specialized hospital in stroke. And thank God I got there when I did, as quickly as I did. And the doctor who was on call that morning, the neurosurgeon, specializes in medical thrombectomy surgery, which is a laser guided scope that goes up through one of your arteries and goes into your brain and just like shoots through the clot and comes back down and pulls it out.
Whoa. Like literally, I've had the heart cath and they go up through the groin area into the
Yeah.
heart, and that's enough freaky out because you wonder how you can do that. They went literally from the groin all the way up to the brain
Yeah.
and could destroy the clot and pull it out.
Yeah, and I was awake for that surgery. I mean, I only recall bits and pieces, but I do recall at one point going, my head hurts really bad, and the doctor or nurse or somebody said, "Yeah, we're retrieving the clot, so that's why your head hurts."
Like,
And
okay,
then,
so
yeah,
you were awake talking to the doctors while they had this little scope into
yeah,
your brain, and
hmm
you actually felt some pain because normally they say the brain you don't really feel anything, but you felt what was going on.
it. I just knew that my head hurt really bad. It felt like I was having a migraine, really, but it
Wow.
was pretty quick. It was pretty fast. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about after surgery. So you got back
Mhm.
to your room, and now you have to. What were you thinking this whole time? Now that you've had a stroke, you just had surgery. What was the next thing that happened in your mind?
The next thing that I can remember was just a nurse saying, "Can you lift your left arm?" And I was able to lift it. And it was like a miracle because I couldn't lift it an hour prior to that. I couldn't do anything on my entire left side. Um,
Wow.
I I think I was in shock because I wasn't scared. I wasn't in any kind of pain, which is awesome. But
Hmm.
I still was like, this can't be happening to me. I mean, it just was like just so surreal.
That is probably one of the. Okay, I'm just going to use the word scary. That
Yeah.
is a very scary story right there.
Mm.
And when you started to have to do recovery, because I know now in the hospitals they get you up and walking around like immediately. What was your recovery like?
I was in the neuro ICU for 2 days, and then they would test my swallow reflex because like the left side of my face was paralyzed for, a couple of hours, and I lost muscle control on that side of my throat. So they first want to make sure that you can swallow before they give you anything to drink. And it was difficult, but I passed the swallow test. And then for a couple of days, I had to drink thick liquids, which are so gross. They taste like you're swallowing snot or something. So gross. Um, and then it felt like every hour or even more often, the doctor or nurse would come in and make me squeeze something with my left hand and then squeeze with my right, and then kind of to test out my strength on my left side and what I was able to do. And then they would have me push my feet against the doctor's hands and kind of test my left foot. And then a few days later, they moved me to my own room on the stroke floor. And
Mhm.
I think I was up and trying to walk 2 days later.
Like up on yourself, you were literally trying to get up and walk because you didn't want to be in the bed, or they made you get up?
No, no, they were encouraging it. Right. Once they realized that I had some strength on my left side and could hold myself up. But they had to strap a gait belt around me, and the physical therapist had to hold onto that gait belt and make sure that I could walk and I wasn't going to fall down. And it was weird because as I was kind of learning how to walk again, I veered to the left because my left side felt very heavy. And sometimes when I'm out walking or even running now, I'll still veer to the left a little bit. So a couple of days I would get up and go. They'd take me to physical therapy and try to have me walk
Mhm.
down the hall. And then they had these little stairs in the physical therapy room where I could walk up this 2 stairs and then walk down them and holding on to a grip bar while I was doing it.
So you've got the physical stuff going on. It sounds like you were amazingly like fortunate that you got to the hospital so fast, and then you started doing the physical therapy. Um,
Yeah.
at some point, when did the mental part of this kick in? And you go like, "Oh my God, my life has changed. I had a stroke, and I've got to figure out like how do I move forward?"
Yeah. I don't know exactly because I think I was definitely in shock for a couple of days because I was still like responding to phone calls, responding on and posting on Facebook. Like it was crazy that very first day I
Oh,
posted to Facebook, "Hey, I just had a stroke this morning." And people were like, "What?" And
right.
yeah. And then I don't know. I think really, it probably didn't really kick in until I saw my kids. They all came up, and they weren't little kids; they were teenagers at this point. But just to see their reaction, and then my family, like my mom, my dad was able to come up with my stepmom and just my sisters. And once I kind of saw everybody's reactions, I think it kind of hit me that this really did happen to me. And it was very scary. I wasn't as scared as my family members were because, when you're told, like my mom lives 2 hours from me, she got a phone call that morning from my sister, I believe, that I had had a stroke and that I was in the hospital having brain surgery. And so, for 2 hours, she had to drive over to Kansas City from Manhattan, where she lives, and think about that, and just, face that fear, I guess, of probably losing your daughter. And I don't know. I know that there were a lot of people in the hospital waiting room praying for me and just supporting each other. And I don't have that experience of being there since I was the one experiencing it, but I think it's once I saw everybody's reactions, it hit home. And then I think by the time when I got home, I think they let me go home 4 days later. And it was when I was trying to walk up the stairs to go to my bedroom, and I
Mhm.
had to use a cane for a while to steady myself. And I was scared to go up the stairs. And then once I got up to my bedroom, I kind of stayed up in my bedroom area for a couple of days before I tried to go down the stairs again because that was scary.
Mhm.
But that's when I think it really kicked in, was when I tried to go back home and start living and just being out of the hospital. When you have such a health crisis and you've got this medical team around you, you feel safer because they're there to watch for, all the things that can go wrong. But once you're home, you're kind of out of that safety net, and it's a little scarier.
That is an amazing story. How does this? You've written a book now. You've written a couple books, and
Mhm.
how do you translate what happened to you into what others might face on a daily basis? That they didn't have strokes, but they've had other things that have happened in their lives that just are debilitating like that. And how do you take the stroke um, lesson and translate that into everyday life?
Yeah, a couple things, because I went into this situation in pretty good health. I would say just always take care of your health, as much as you can, because you never know when you're going to need that strength and your body healthy to fight off whatever's happening. Um, but really, the message I mostly am wanting to send is that mental health is so important, because about 2 months after I had my stroke, I tried to go back to work. I felt like I had physically recovered 100%. And I felt like, hey, I conquered this stroke thing. Time to get back to work. And I was not ready
Mhm.
emotionally or mentally. I didn't realize that I was about to be hit with debilitating anxiety and depression that would just rock my world. And I'd suffered from minor anxiety before in my life, and had been on a medication for anxiety since
Mhm.
my kids were young, and I think I chalked it up to working and having young kids, and all the crazy things that happen in life. And but I had never had depression to the point where I really couldn't function, and it hit me so hard and fast because I got to work and I couldn't concentrate. I've always been in PR and communications, and I
Mhm.
couldn't concentrate enough. I had just published my first book, and it was a marketing book called Marketing to Gen Z. And I got back to work, and I was supposed to like be editing my book and getting it ready to hit publish. And I couldn't look at a sentence and figure out like how to make a sentence work. My brain just wasn't working. And so I was really worried that I had permanent cognitive disabilities left over from the stroke.
Mhm.
But in the end, it turned out to be anxiety and depression that were wreaking havoc on my brain and allowing me to not be able to function at work. And I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. I thought those were after effects of the stroke. And
Mhm.
but when you have a brain injury of any kind, you need proper nutrition and lots and lots and lots of rest, especially in the beginning. And I wasn't getting either. So it was just like this perfect cocktail to make my brain just go crazy. And I can say that that's not a PC term, but I say it because that's what I was feeling. I just felt like I was losing my grip on reality. And I did lose my grip on reality for a while. And it became very, very scary for my family and for me. And I couldn't function. I would sometimes find myself at the bottom of the staircase in a fetal position, rocking, like with my arms around my knees, just rocking back and forth, because I just felt like I couldn't handle life. I was just like, just make it all go away. Just please make it all go away. And I've
Yeah.
never experienced that before, but I know so many people struggle with their mental health. And it's very important to understand that approximately 50% or more of stroke survivors, or even heart attack survivors, will have mental health issues following their incident. And it's not just because of the traumatic incident that happened to you, although that can cause mental health issues, but it's also because of the chemical changes in your body and the chemical changes in your brain. 1 in 3 stroke survivors will have post stroke depression. So that's like 33%. And one
Mhm.
in four will have post stroke anxiety. And really, nobody is talking about these conditions. And the scary thing is, you survive a stroke to hopefully go on and live a happy, healthy life after that, and be productive again. But when you're hit with um, mental health disabilities, it hinders your ability to grow and to be able to heal properly. And many stroke survivors, you get through the stroke or you get through the heart attack or whatever the major incident is, and then you find yourself in a position where you wish you would have died. You wish that that incident would
Mm.
have taken your life, because you wonder, what am I here for? Life isn't worth living. And why am I even here? And that's very scary. And we cannot allow stroke survivors to get through that and to then struggle with their mental health on top of everything else they struggled with. Um, yeah, so, and mental health is, everybody understands the importance of mental health, but so many people are so embarrassed to seek treatment or can't find treatment. And it's so important to get ahead of it and to recognize the signs and hopefully be able to find some help.
You know what I want to ask you is like you were in the hospital a day or two, and one of the first things that you did was get on Facebook, and I'm assuming to let people know that you did have this condition, but you are okay. But then you also went right back to work as soon as you could, and you were saying to yourself, "I'm okay. I want to go forward and everything," and you kept pushing your life. I want to tie this into something else that you and I talked about recently, also, and that is your latest episode where you recently got laid off from your job, and all these things. You are a very go person, it seems, right? Um,
Yeah.
how has this changed you in such a way that life is not about I've got to go to work, I've got to do these are the things that make me valued in this world. And how did you take all of this stuff and like go, wait, I've got some mental problems myself, and they're not even problems. I just need to start taking care of myself. So talk about that because that's really what I'm hearing that the story ought to be here is how to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, the when I had my stroke, and I thought, especially after I went back to work and didn't feel like I could function, didn't feel like I could do my job, I thought my brain was broken. Um, I ended up having to take disability leave, go on short-term disability again because I had to be hospitalized twice for mental health issues and to get some crisis intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And because I did contemplate taking my life one night, the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. But when I really thought I could never go back to work and never work in communications again, because of course your brain catastrophizes everything. It's like, I can't write, so obviously I can't work. I
Mm-hmm.
had an identity crisis because I didn't really have anything else to fall back on. Yes, I'm a mom, but my kids were older now and they didn't need mommy. And I wasn't running them around to all their baseball, football practices
Mm-hmm.
anymore. They were independent. And so I kind of had lost that identity a little bit. And I never really had any hobbies or anything that really filled my cup other than work. I was just always kind of a workaholic and just always wanted to climb the next rung on the career ladder. I was always like, what's my next accomplishment?
Yep.
What's my next big move? And then when I thought I had lost that and I would never be able to return to communications again, I didn't know who I was and I was so lost. And that fed into my mental health conditions. I mean, that was like fuel to the fire. And I had to learn the hard way. You have to have more in your life. You have to have more than your career. You are not your career. You have to have something else. And so I had like a period of self discovery for about a year where I had to try out different things to see what I liked doing, what was worthwhile to me and fulfilling in my life that was beyond my career.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to find and start some different hobbies, and I didn't really find anything. But I think what I did find was just that I was finding more fulfillment in the small things of life, like spending time with family and friends, and really reconnecting with people in my life, and really getting to the heart of the human experience and slowing down. My husband and I, we have a boat, and we keep it on the lake that's close to our home in Kansas City. And in the summers, we love to spend time on our boat. That fills my cup. Just being on the water, being in nature, being around friends,
Mm-hmm.
that's fun for me. Um, and it's fun for us. So I think I finally was like, okay, fun is really, really important, and family and friends are really important, and just finding ways to center yourself. So I started meditating, I started journaling, I started just really self-care, and I'd never done that before to the extent that I had to when I was forced to. And but my husband and I, at one point, CBD was helping me with my anxiety and depression a little bit. And so at one point when I had been on disability for a while, we decided to open a CBD store, and sell it. And I just wanted to be able to talk to people about the benefits of CBD and how it could help with mental health, physical
Mhm.
health, and all sorts of other ailments. And but of course, I couldn't just be content to talk about it. I had to open a store because I'm just like, what's the next big thing I can do? So let's just jump into small business ownership with both feet. And it was
Mhm.
super, super scary. But I made myself, and my husband and I did this, and we did it together. And it ended up being exactly what I needed because I had some place to go during the day. That's a key, when you're struggling with mental health, is to have a routine. And without that routine, your mental health issues will fester and become worse. So you need to have a routine. And being
Yeah.
able to go to that store every day and interact with people and help people, because I was talking to people about the benefits of CBD. Um, that helped me. That kind of filled my cup for a while. And in the beginning, I was so afraid to even count back change. I had no confidence. My confidence had hit rock bottom after my stroke. And I had never experienced that before. I've always been a very confident, self assured person. And doing that for about 10 months, running the store for about 10 months, I finally started to get more confidence little by little, and started doing some marketing for my own store to get more customers and make sure people knew we were out there. And then once I was able to market my own store and do some PR for my store, I was like, "Yep, I can do this. I'm ready to go back to work. I'm ready to go back to like a corporate
Mhm.
environment." Partially it was financial. We needed the money. My husband had also just been recently laid off at that point. So he was on unemployment, I was on disability. We were starting a new business. It was a scary financial time in our life.
Yeah. So talk to me. I'll be your everyman.
Okay.
And talk to Michael, who also works 24/7, never goes outside of his, little circle of where he lives every day, and doesn't really have anything other than the things that he does with his work and life. So if I'm your everyman, what are the things that you're going to say to me, or everyman, which is the book, but we'll use every person.
Hmm.
Talk to me and say, what are you going to tell every man to do instead of just identifying with work? What is it
Yes.
now that you've learned and you want to tell? You would tell me.
I would say it's really important to find your driving force. So, what is your big why? Why do you do all this stuff? Why do you work 24/7? Are you fulfilling some big goal? Or are you just doing it because it's habit? And so, once you're able to really define your big why, you can
Mhm.
align all of your goals to achieve that why and to be targeting that. And you can redefine your goals and kind of how you spend your day, your weeks, so that you're always aligned to that big why. And um and it's finding that kind of happy balance to, if you are aligned with what your big why in life is, then you will be happy, you will be fulfilled. And if that is working, I'm not here to tell somebody never stop working. I mean, if that's your driving force and you're moving toward that, good for you. But most of us, let's like be honest, most of us do not work to live. We do not live to work. We work to live. So depending on what your big why is, it's really important to develop goals and align those goals and set a plan to follow those goals and achieve them, on your path to your big why. And if, a lot of people, that is very ego based. Mine has always been kind of ego based and financially based. Let's face it, we do have bills to pay and we have to make a living, but we should not sacrifice our life for making a living, if that makes sense, because it's too short. I'm not hearing you. I think you're on mute, Michael. There you go.
Okay. That was weird. Computer just decided to do its own thing.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So when you recently, I know that you've had a big change in your life and you're doing some new things so that you are not your job. You are different. how do you handle not being your job? Because those people go to work 9 to 5, they go home and they relax, well, maybe relax, they cook, maybe watch some TV, go to bed, get up and do the job again. So a lot of people's lives are just doing their job, and that's who they are. When you go to a party, hi, who are you? Oh, I'm Michael. I'm a talk show host. You say, or somebody else may say, oh, I am a pilot. That's what I am.
Right.
Um,
Right.
what do you tell those people? What do you say?
How would you describe yourself if you could not mention your job? How would you describe yourself if you could not mention your job title or what you do for a living?
I think that's a really good question, right? Because
Yeah.
I think I do that too. I describe myself as I am a photographer, I am a musician, I am a talk show host. These sorts of things, and I've never thought about it outside of you know um, that
Yeah.
environment. What do you tell people? What else would you tell every man? Um, what else do you want me to say?
Yeah. It's very important to just to find who you are, what drives you, and to be able to move toward your, like I said, your big why in life. And mine now is to be able to retire comfortably with my husband and to live a long, healthy life.
Hmm.
And so, and to be true to myself. So for me, I still think I'm aligned to what I do, because now what I do or what I want to be doing is aligned to my story and how I can help other people. So I'm writing books, I'm speaking to support groups, stroke support groups. I am also becoming a life coach, and I really want to help stroke survivors or survivors of major life crisis, or even just
Hmm.
like people in general that want to move their life forward and to get out of a rut. I think that's my purpose and my calling now. And if I'm aligned to my purpose and my calling, I'm hoping the money follows, and I'm hoping that I'm fulfilled for the rest of my life.
I think that that is a very worthwhile purpose, and people could use that motivation in their lives, right? To
Yeah.
be able to get out. Um, I love your story. I want to find out more about Angie Read. We're going to play a little game called This or That. I'm
Oh
going to
no.
give you, um, I'll give you two choices. You can choose one or the other, but not neither or both. And if you have to explain yourself so that you can clarify a situation, we'll do that. We're
Okay.
going to start with some easy questions. They may get a little harder. They
Okay.
might all be easy or they might all be hard. We'll see what happens. So
Okay.
choose one or the other, and here we go.
Okay.
uh, physical rehabilitation or mental wellness exercises?
Oh gosh. Well, some probably mental wellness exercises, because so much of physical recovery depends on the mental. You have to you have to be able to see it and feel it in your mind before you can feel it in your body. So I probably mental.
Okay. Um, private reflection or group discussions?
For me, private.
Okay.
I don't
Um,
love being in a group, but
I probably would choose private too. How about local support groups or online communities?
uh, ah, this isn't a lightning round, is it? So I
No,
can
you
take a
can take
minute.
your time. We're
Um,
learning about you.
Probably local support groups, because when you're in an online group, anyone can say anything, and a lot of times people focus on the negative online, and that brings me down. And you might be able to offer some advice or some help, but I find that so much of that, goes back to the negative, and I think it's hard. And I like to be able to look at people eye to eye and connect.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How about reading others' recovery stories or sharing your own?
Probably sharing my own, because through sharing my own, I hear of others' recovery stories, and I'm better able to connect them once I share my own story. You can read somebody else's story and not feel a connection to that person or feel a connection to their story. So I
Hmm.
think, and it's also a form of my own therapy to share my story. Writing my books is a form of therapy for me. Just getting it out and sharing my testimony and my story is a form of therapy. So
I
probably,
love that you look at that like your writing is therapy for you.
It is. And it's funny because one of the things that I write about as far as being able to help you manage your mental health is keeping your hands busy. Keeping your hands busy has been scientifically proven to help with depression and to lower depression.
Uh,
I don't know why. I don't know what the connection there is, but there's something there. And for me, writing and typing keeps my hands busy as well as my mind. And I think that that's for me is a way to release.
do you
Um,
like to, and I'm just asking this, do you like to write on paper and then transcribe onto something else, or do you like to type?
Yeah, I like to type. My writing has gotten very bad. And I
Yeah.
don't know if it's because of my stroke, probably not because
Mhm.
my right hand, I'm right-handed and this side was not affected. So it's probably not that. Maybe I'm just getting old and it hurts to write, you get carpal tunnels or whatever. So I'm probably typing.
Okay.
Yeah. Except when I'm journaling. When I'm journaling, I like to do pen to paper.
I feel you on that. There's some kind of, I don't know if it's a catharsis or if it's a connection or whatever that comes out when you write as opposed to typing.
Yeah.
Um, cool. How about facing fears head on or gradual exposure?
Probably head on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Structured therapy sessions or informal support groups?
Ugh. That's so hard.
Oh,
Both are so necessary, but probably structured. So
okay.
I'm a person that needs a lot of structure.
Okay. Um, how about public speaking engagements or one-on-one consultations?
I I really like public speaking engagements. I like being able to share to a larger audience. But even through those public speaking engagements, I usually make a connection with one person or maybe a couple of people
Hmm.
very, very closely. Somebody I make really good eye contact with in the crowd, or somebody who comes up to me afterwards and tells me how much, what I had to say, how that touched them and helped them. That I get so much fulfillment out of. But I like sharing on a large. I've always liked to public speak. I mean, as my career in public relations and communications, I had
Hmm.
always been a speaker, and I've been, given presentations throughout my career, and it's something I've always kind of enjoyed and thrived on. So after my stroke, when my speech was affected and my confidence was affected, I thought I would never be able to step foot on stage again.
Hmm.
And the first time I did, I look back and I see a video of my first presentation post stroke. And I see myself limping on stage and I see myself struggling with my words a little bit. And it's a little bit embarrassing, but I'm like, I did it. And I got up there and I had the courage and I did it. And the more I do it, the better I'm getting at it. And so I like being able to go back and do that thing that I never thought I'd be able to do again.
Gotcha. I love
Mhm.
that. How about rediscovering the old Angie or embracing the new Angie?
Definitely embracing the new. You can't go back. You can't go backwards. And
Okay.
the hard part for so many stroke survivors, I'm sure cancer survivors or any other, health crisis survivors, is that you are not the same. You have changed. And it doesn't do any good to wish and hope for the old person,
Hmm.
because you are new and you are growing and changing. I mean, we're always growing and changing. If we're not, we're dying. And so reflecting on the old will maybe make you miss some things, and just you need to live in the present and to hope for the future. Looking backwards
Okay.
is never really a good thing. It doesn't do you any good.
Then how about this? Sharing personal vulnerabilities or maintaining a strong facade?
Oh gosh, I've always been an open book. I tell people
Uh-huh.
I will tell you everything, probably way more than you wanted to know. I overshare. It's a
Gotcha.
problem. It's a problem. But and I don't see it as so much sharing vulnerabilities. I'm just sharing myself as a human being. And
Okay.
none of us are perfect. Perfection is an illusion, and it'll kill you to try to strive for perfection. I know this from being a perfectionist my entire life. And
Gotcha.
when I finally kind of let go of, hey, I have to be perfect in all things, I found like forgiveness for myself. And it felt so good. And it feels really good when you know that you are not perfect and you do not need to be perfect.
Nice. How about navigating challenges through intuition or through learned strategies?
Intuition. This is crazy because my daughter and I just went up to Sedona, Arizona a few days ago,
Okay.
just a day trip, mother daughter trip. And we had our palms read and tarot cards read. And the psychic told me that I follow my intuition and I need to keep doing that. And it's funny because I always kind of have, you know, just flown by the seat of my own pants, or I don't know the expression, but I always kind of followed my gut, sometimes, into something crazy, but usually it's ended up for the best. I think everything ends up for the best in the end. Like when I first got married, my first marriage, so I've been married twice. My
Hmm.
first marriage, I was 24. We had dated long distance for 6 weeks and we eloped. I mean, it's just so impulsive, but my intuition was telling me it was the right thing to do. And I ended up having three amazing kids. The marriage didn't work out, but now we're friends and everything is fine. And we
Uh-huh.
have amazing kids together.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I have an idea of what you might say, but I could be wrong about this. Seeking
Okay.
external validation or internal self-assurance.
There was a time in my life where I would have had to say external validation, but now I think it's internal.
Yeah,
Mm.
that was my money was on that. Otherwise, I was going to owe
Oh,
myself $5.
good for you.
Uh, okay, let's do some thought-provoking things. So,
Okay.
if you could, would you erase the memory of the stroke but lose all the growth and insight you gained from it, or keep everything as it happened?
I would keep everything as it happened. Yeah.
Well, I think most people say that. Why do you think? Why do you think that is? Because we don't know what would it be if we hadn't, or why?
Because I've grown so much. I like myself so much more. I like life more, for the right reasons, I think. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a slave to my job anymore. I'm not trying to win any awards. I mean,
Okay.
when I say that, I literally wanted to win every communication award there was.
Hmm.
And I'm no longer trying to win awards. I'm just trying to be a good person, live a good life. And
Okay.
I think I've learned a lot. I think my kids have learned a lot, um, based on what I went through. And I wouldn't want to remove that experience for them either.
Okay. In that case, then here's the next question. Would you prefer a world where everyone understands your journey because they've been through it, or one where strokes and similar trauma don't exist at all?
Definitely where strokes or similar traumas don't exist at all.
Okay.
So I was very lucky, and I would be remiss not to mention this. The only reason I'm able to walk, talk, and function now is because my husband caught my stroke so quickly, and he did not hesitate when he noticed my speech was garbled. My left side was drooping. I couldn't move anything on the entire left side of my body. He didn't hesitate. He called 911 immediately. And stroke, you can survive a stroke if you get early medical help. Um, and I'm very, very lucky that I can sit here and talk to you today and share my story. But
Yeah.
I mean, I have also had people in my life that have lost, their battle with cancer or strokes or heart disease. And I would love it if there was a world where nothing like that existed, because I'm sure there would be other life challenges that would teach us the lessons we need to know.
Gotcha. I keep hearing the lessons in life from you because of the stroke, and I think that's we do learn from those things, right? So,
Well,
um,
I hope so.
yeah. Let's say there was a switch you could turn off all negative emotions. Okay, things like anxiety or depression, but it also dims some of the positive emotions. Would you press it?
No,
No. You'd
no,
keep the negative.
life, life's ups and downs kind of balance each other out. And while I don't want to be, in crisis, I don't want to have anxiety or depression ever again. It makes you, just appreciate the good times even that much more.
Okay, I got a
Yeah.
couple more for you.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Would you
Shoot.
choose to relive a day before the stroke or a day from your recovery journey? If you could relive one of those.
Hmm. That's tough. I don't I don't know.
right?
I don't know. Probably a day, probably a recovery day,
Hmm.
where I could give myself more grace, for the, the troubles that I was going through. Because I was so hard on myself when I couldn't function and I couldn't write or, edit my work. I was so hard on myself. If I could go back, I would say it's okay and it will be okay. And just, have faith and give yourself grace and take your time.
Gotcha. Can you think of what that day is? Because you seem to be thinking about it. What were you thinking?
Mm. Yeah, envisioning a day where I went back to work. And at that time I worked in a job and worked in a place that was not aligned with my soul, and that wasn't where I should have been when I had a stroke, and wasn't where I should have been when I went back to work, because it wasn't a soft place to land after a crisis. Um, there's one day where I was getting a performance review. I got it 2 months after I got back from having a stroke, and I got a bad performance review.
Wow.
And it was based on what I had done since I got back. And I froze in the moment, and I didn't speak my mind and say, "Excuse me, I just had a life-altering event. I just had a stroke. I'm having depression and anxiety. Of course, I'm not going to be able to travel and speak and bring in new business based on the old expectations of what I should be doing." And I wasn't even cleared to travel yet. My
Hmm.
doctor hadn't cleared me to fly and travel. And I didn't stand up for myself and say, "No, I will not sign this bad performance review because I don't deserve this."
I hear you on that. And there's so many things. Matter of fact, if there's something that people learn from this episode and from Funny Way of Looking, is we all need to start being able to speak our minds, make other people understand what they're saying, understand what we're saying, and be able to move forward together in some reasonable fashion. I hate corporate jobs because of what you just described. We could do a whole show on that. You might hear it coming out in my passion. So, last one.
Okay.
Okay, if you could communicate one core lesson from your journey to every individual on the planet, but in doing so, you'd forget it yourself, would you do it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I need all the lessons that I've learned, I've needed to learn. And I think, I could tell other people to learn the lesson, but unless you're experiencing it yourself, you probably won't.
Hmm.
So that might just be lip service. I mean, there are so many like health gurus out there, and life coaches and everybody else that's out there trying to teach some of these lessons. And do we listen? We don't, unless we go through them ourselves or have
Right.
a personal experience. So yeah, no, I've needed to learn every lesson I've learned to get to where I am today.
Awesome. Angie,
Mhm.
it's been like amazing talking with you. Thank you. I want people to be able to get in touch with you for sure. Let's throw these up on the screen and talk about. For everybody that's listening, as opposed to can see the screen, the website is Angie Read Books with an S, and Angie Angie Read is READ Books with an S dot online. Angie Read Books online, and then on LinkedIn, go to Angie Read, one word, AngieRead. Facebook, we've got you on Facebook and X or Twitter, depending on if you're going to give in. Um, Angie Read Books at Angie Read Books. Um, and finally, we've got you can find her book Invisible Scars on Amazon. Throw that into the search bar and you will come up with the book online. Angie, it has been amazing. Thank you so much. For everyone else, we'll see you next time on A Funny Way of Looking. Look us up at afunnywayoflooking.com. You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, at A Funny Way of Looking. And if you want to learn more about us, and definitely Angie's going to be in our newsletter in a couple of weeks to hear more about her, and you can read her article. You can find that at afunnywayoflooking.news, NEWS. Thank you so much for having been on. This has been amazing. Thank you.
I've had a great time. I would love to come back on. I could talk to you for hours and hours, Michael.
We're going to talk about like that corporate evil one of these days. I'm sure there's some good corporate stuff that goes on too, but your
There's a
story
lot
got
of
me
good.
riled
Yeah.
up.
I mean,
Yeah.
I got laid off, but I don't blame anybody that I worked for or worked with for that. It happens in big companies, and I was just a casualty of the latest one at the company where I worked for.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't personal, even though, the aftermath of it is very personal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't even want to like go into it.
Yeah. Well, that's another.
We will definitely have to do I bet we could get a panel of 1,000 people to talk about corporate.
We probably could.
Yeah,
I've got 5,000 people that I could pull together. Everyone that just got laid off from the company I did.
All right. Thank you very much, and we'll talk about that corporate thing in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.